Hey folks, in this video, you'll see how Storm conquers Wakanda. Here, Storm from the X-Men just so happens to be a baddie, or anti-hero if you want to be technical about it. She's not really who she says she is or who she portrays to the rest of the world. Even the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization knows about her shenanigans, but they seem to be treating it lightly. On the other hand, a character like Wolverine smells something fishy. Literally. We know that Wolverine has a strong sense of smell, being the sharp-clawed creature that he is. By the way, that wasn't supposed to be a joke on Wolverine's methods because he is eventually made to pay for his snooping and suspiciousness with his life. We'll get to the whole story soon enough, but first, here's a little background information. First, there are supposed to be two separate and opposing universes that the story takes off from. They are Earth 161 and Earth 616. From their names alone, you can deduce that they are mirrors or reflections of each other. So expect that what happens in one of these dimensions will result in the near exact opposite in its sister dimension, or at least both dimensions will vary in terms of the actions of its main characters. The story is credited to Chris Claremont and dates from around 2009, and it comes under the X-Men Forever series run. And as the initial title suggests, Storm eventually takes over Wakanda with some cunning. But first, she has to bypass all the X-Men to get to that point, starting with Wolverine. Even the cover of the first issue of the series hints at this. It shows the X-Men gathered around Wolverine's casket. Who knew that Wolverine or Logan could ever die in this manner and never regenerate? Apparently, Storm is that powerful to be able to end Wolverine's life like that, and this is something we've never really come to appreciate. When we hear of Storm, we immediately think of her powers at controlling the rain, lightning, thunder, and some other freak weather phenomena, but it turns out that Storm's abilities actually involve the control of natural elements. I bet you didn't know that. So according to this definition of her powers, she can control stuff from out of space if she wants, like dark matter, or any and all elemental building blocks of the universe. So this makes her extremely powerful to the point of facing down the almighty Silver Surfer at one time. But you know how they say you never really know people till you see them in their element? This has always been the case with Storm, or at least the Storm from Earth 161, who has successfully kept her ambitions and true nature a secret from everyone while waiting for the right moment to pounce. There is even a suggestion that she's a clone, but more on that later. Chris Claremont, the writer of this branch-off series, had in fact written a parent story to this run back in the 90s titled X-Men Extinction Event. In the original plot, Storm was a troubled teenage girl. In addition, she was once the girlfriend of T'Challa, who would later rule Wakanda and become the Black Panther. So the more mature Storm we have come to know always had a dark and troubled past that no one knew about. Or rather, the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization sorta knew but didn't care to take action. As we already mentioned, Wolverine knew something was off. So Wolverine goes on one of his solo recon missions to find out the truth. Earlier on, he had stormed out of the X-Mansion because he felt frustrated at something. The other guy simply thought he was only throwing one of his infamous tantrums and let him be, so Storm's trail led him to a penthouse suite. He was in the middle of sniffing out Storm for who she really was when an unfortunate thing happened. There was an explosion and a fire. At its center were the charred remains of Wolverine. His regenerating adamantium capabilities couldn't help him this time. Who could be so powerful as to fry Wolverine? We get more than a clue or two in a couple of the comic panels. Storm had been lurking around all along and had zapped Wolverine to the point of no return. Fortunately or not, Wolverine was in communication with Jean Grey at the very moment he was killed by Storm. So with Jean Grey, there was a psychic connection just before he was killed. This sent Jean into a coma, and Professor Xavier tried to read her mind with the help of Beast. He wanted to know about the moments leading to her sudden loss of consciousness, so at first, he sees certain private connections between Jean and Wolverine. It turns out she was emotionally cheating with Wolverine even when she was already serious with Cyclops. But that aside, Xavier eventually gets to the part where he sees that Storm is responsible for killing Wolverine, and this singular event has caused Jean to lose her mind. Before now, all the X-Men had been fooled into thinking Storm was a friend. She even tiptoed her way back to the mansion after killing the Wolverine. But Sabretooth actually locked onto her scent back at the penthouse crime scene. You might want to note that in this dimension, that is Earth 161, Sabretooth happens to be Wolverine's father, and so he confronts Storm once he tracks her down to avenge the killing of Wolverine, who is his son. However, the other X-Men unbeknowingly side with Storm at that instant, up until they discover what she really did. Let's backtrack a little. In one of the panels before his death, Wolverine is depicted as having only 5 claws. In short, one of the claws on one hand is missing, but no, it didn't just disappear or get broken off. That single missing claw ended up on Kitty Pryde. If you don't know who that is, she is a member of the X-Men with the ability to phase through a solid object by reacting with it at an atomic level. So when she phased through Wolverine, she accidentally took one of his claws. So the point of this digression is that she uses the same single claw to leave a scar on Storm's face as she tries to escape. Call it poetic justice. Afterwards, Storm heads back to Wakanda, where she once had a little history. She literally crashes into a palace window in flight, even though she has lost a lot of blood. Meanwhile, organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D. have tracked her flight trajectory all the way to Wakanda and are trying to warn T'Challa about her and what she has done. They tell him that she is not the Storm he once knew. As a precaution, they urge him to test her, and so he does. He runs her through a DNA scan, and the result comes out positive. But the problem is not with her genetics, but with her soul. We must also reiterate that this version of Storm is really a clone, and a very accurate one at that, down to her memories. This is how she knew to go back to Wakanda and seek refuge, but at some point prior to now, she was corrupted by the Shadow King, and T'Challa is too blinded by his old love to see her for who she is or even test for it. Now you can hear S.H.I.E.L.D. screaming, "Don't say we didn't tell you so." Storm even acts like she means well. She provides some rain for the Wakandan agricultural crops, and when some construction work is going on, she also holds back the rain so work can go on smoothly. She quickly and easily wins over the affection of the Wakandan people. Moreover, she also joins the fight to protect Wakandan sovereignty. Case in point, she helps T'Challa and the people of Wakanda put away the Killmonger. Remember the guy played by Michael B. Jordan in the Black Panther movies who almost toppled T'Challa from his throne and prevented him from ever wearing the Black Panther suit? Yeah, that's the Killmonger. But in this interpretation of the comics, the Killmonger story plays out differently, and it just so happens to be a big twist, so keep watching. Meanwhile, T'Challa is so smitten with Storm that he proposes to her, and she says yes. They are soon slated to be married, and all the people of Wakanda are happy for them. So it gets to the day when they're supposed to be married, and as Storm gets dressed, Killmonger, who is supposed to be locked up, sneaks up behind her. He manages to place a device around her neck that effectively neutralizes her powers. How did that even happen? And who let him out of his cell? These are really serious questions, but more importantly, this is the worst time for a character like Killmonger to be let loose. For one, it's the most vulnerable time for T'Challa, who is focused on a girl he thinks is the love of his life. In short, T'Challa more or less has his guard down. T'Challa soon gets wind of the commotion in the bridesmaid's chamber and checks it out. He finds Killmonger and assumes the worst, but Killmonger's plan was always to kill T'Challa and take Storm for his bride. And surprise, at this point, he has already assassinated everyone in the Wakandan government. He isn't called the Killmonger for nothing. The only person left in his way is T'Challa, almost like in the movie too. So he goes on to kill T'Challa when he is most vulnerable, even doing it on the palace balcony in full view of the crowd. Then he walks back into the room and moves to take off the power-dampening necklace he placed around Storm's neck. And here's the twist. He's actually in cahoots with Storm. She was the one who orchestrated his arrest and embedded him in Wakanda. So when the time was right, he would clear out the Wakandan government and set things up nicely for her. But it seems Killmonger overestimated his role in all of this. He thought he would be allowed to rule Wakanda alongside Storm after helping her gain power. Storm, on her part, wasn't stupid. How could she allow a man who had publicly executed the rightful king to become her royal consort? That would have infuriated the people of Wakanda and raised a lot of suspicion. So she took the sword from Killmonger and stabbed him with it. Storm had made him do all the work, now it was time to collect. She went over to T'Challa's body and faked some tears of grief, and the people of Wakanda were moved, so they declared her the next ruler of Wakanda. Certainly she was a smooth operator, don't you think? If you have any comments, and we're sure you have lots of them, please leave them below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to get up to speed on related Marvel comic book titles. Thank you for watching, and bye!